Changed since the Sandy Hook school shooting, and people of Newtown are still fighting to make a difference. My colleague Elaine Cajano spoke with Lois Beckett, who's been reporting extensively on the community's efforts.
So Lois, what has changed with respect to gun control policy since Sandy Hook?
We've seen incredible movement at the state level. 10 states since Sandy Hook have expanded their background check requirements. About 25 have toughened domestic violence laws. But at the same time, there's also been moves in the direction of gun rights, loosening laws, allowing guns on university campuses in Texas, for example. So we really see the polarization of the country growing even more stark when it comes to gun laws.
So let's talk about this. The House this month passed a bill that in part weakens states' abilities to regulate the carrying of concealed weapons. What kind of state versus federal debate do you see kind of shaping up here with respect to gun policy?
This is such an interesting case because it's Democrats who are talking about states' rights here and Republicans who are saying no.
That's not typically the case.
It's not at all. And it's actually hard to overstate how consequential this law would be if it were passed. This law would allow tourists to come to New York City bringing their guns on the subways, armed people with concealed weapons in Times Square. Right now, there are many states that do have stricter gun control laws, like in New York, and this would radically change the ability of cities to govern gun carrying in their own jurisdictions.
Yeah, it would essentially render those state laws moot.
Yeah, you could still govern where guns are carried, but it might even allow New Yorkers who wanted a gun to get a permit from another state doing an end run around local laws. So in New York, where very few people are allowed to carry a gun, that could be a radical transformation.
Let's talk about Sandy Hook Promise. This is a nonprofit organization that was founded by family members whose loved ones were killed at Sandy Hook. They have released a public service announcement this year, a powerful one. It's called Tomorrow's News, in which you basically see a school and a reporter reporting from what will be the scene of a mass shooting the next day. And the goal is really to kind of raise awareness about what the warning signs are. Tell us more about the mission of Sandy Hook Promise.
I mean, that ad just really hits home because as reporters, we know how these shootings are going to play out. And we know almost every time there were warning signs that were missed, particularly signs of domestic violence again and again is this predicting factor. But Sandy Hook Promise has done amazing work across multiple fronts on gun laws and gun policy, but they've also trained 2.5 million students and teachers to know the signs of violence, trying to understand that preventing violence isn't just about laws, but it's about individual people being able to actually act on, knowing what to do when something seems off, because people always spot that something seems off, but they aren't empowered to do something they don't know what to do, and that's what these families are trying to change.
It really sounds like a focus more on the preventative side of things rather than after an attack or trying to prepare people for an attack. It's actually recognizing those steps leading up to an attack.
And what's so interesting about these families' approaches is it's not about fortifying schools, it's not putting up armed guards in them, it's understanding that empowering people, including kids, is the way to prevent shootings before they happen. It's not about bulletproof glass.
Do the families of Sandy Hook feel like their voices are being heard in Congress? Because we continue to see mass shootings, and we've seen them since Sandy Hook. When you talk to the parents and the community members there, is there a sense that, in fact, their concerns, their voices are being paid attention to?
It's always important to remember that the 26 families who lost someone, they've taken very different paths, have different perspectives. But of those who are speaking publicly, it's just devastating for any of us to get another alert to say that there's been another shooting. But if you're a parent or your child was lost in one of those and you're getting that alert and knowing very precisely what those other families are going through, it is so hard. I was on a bus last week with families from Newtown going down to Washington, and they were still there, still fighting this cause, and very few people would meet with them. The room they had booked for their press conference was double booked. They were moved to a smaller room. Just in so many ways they were being ignored and discounted, and yet they aren't ready to give up this fight.
They're going to continue.
Yes.
All right. Lois Beckett, thank you so much, Lois.